Hello and welcome to Super Atheist Brothers Episode 2. I am Turtle alongside Gavagai,
Hello.
and today we're going to be talking about a number of things. We're going to be talking about Orange is the New Black Season 2 and just Orange is the New Black in general, I believe. We're also going to be discussing the Trolley moral dilemma. But first I wanted to talk about something that I saw a couple weeks ago that I hadn't seen before, and it's kind of one of the things that made me want to do this podcast, YouTube show. I was driving home from work, and I saw a bumper sticker, and I how frequently have you seen these coexist bumper stickers? Are they pretty common around by you, Gavagai?
Yeah, I've seen them around town here. They're, in fact, I see them probably every day. I think there's someone at my work that actually
As one.
has one on their car. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them for I don't know. I want to say like 5 or 6 years. I've every so often. I used to think it was the same car that I was seeing, but I think it's when I worked at my last job, I would see on my way to work. But I'm not now at this point in time. I'm not even sure if it was the same car I was seeing because they are so common. Um, but what I saw was a spoof, I guess, on it, and it was a bumper sticker which was all in Christian symbols, which said one way. It's clearly a take on the coexist bumper stickers, and there was just I don't know how you feel about the coexist stickers, and I'll just quickly describe it for those who haven't seen it. But the coexist sticker, it's the word coexist, but all the letters are made up of symbols for mostly different religions. The C is the Islamic crescent moon and star. The O is the peace symbol. The E is an E that has the male and female symbols jetting out of it. The X is the Jewish star. The I is an I, but the dot in the I is a pentagram. And the S is the yin and yang symbol, and the T is the Christian cross. And I have kind of mixed feelings about these coexist stickers because they sound like a nice idea. And there are a couple different takes on some. There are some coexist stickers I was looking at these online that have different, some slightly different variations on what the letters are. But I think the one I just described is the primary one. But um, but yeah, I feel like it's a nice idea that doesn't really take into account how diametrically opposed these religions and um, what's your take on the coexist bumper stickers?
Yeah. I mean, I guess in general, I prefer the idea that maybe we can at least try to get along together
Yeah,
rather than uh, suggesting that the only option is annihilating each other. So yeah, I mean, given the alternative to coexistence, I like the idea. I think all religion is kind of superstition and things, and we'd be better off without it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So yeah, that
right. I mean that's
I'll take that as the alternative.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's almost like a bumper sticker that said free jetpacks. Like, oh, that sounds neat, but that's not going to happen. Um, that's kind of my view on it, especially when I saw this other bumper sticker, which, as I said, I saw and it says one way. And Gavagai and I were discussing before we went online here because it's really a stretch. I could tell pretty much when I at a glance that it was supposed to be Christian symbols, but there really aren't enough Christian symbols, I guess, to make this work, and some of them are really shoehorned in here. Let me describe it. Again, it
Got it
says
up, I think.
yeah, it says one way, And I actually didn't recognize what the first symbol was. Gavagai had to point that out. But the O is the omega symbol. And the weirdest one is the N. The N is an N, but the left-hand side of the N, has a star above it, and then the right-hand side is a cross. So it's almost like an I and a T, really, but it's still supposed to be an N. And the star, I guess, I assume is supposed to be the the star that was above Jesus's manger, supposedly, and then the cross is the cross. But what those two things have to do with an N, I have no idea. And then the E is a lowercase e, but the loop part of the E is turned into the Christian fish. The W is a three-pronged crown. The A is a weird one too, because it's kind of an A, but the top part of an A is turned into an arrow pointing up, which I guess just towards heaven or God or something. But then the middle of the A is a silhouette of a dove, and the Y is a torch of some sort. We were talking about that one too. We can't figure out exactly what it's. What were you saying you thought it might be?
Well, I mean, the Pentecostals talk about tongues of fire being over the people's heads
Yeah.
at the Pentecost, and that was like the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. And I guess suppose it could also just be the idea of a light or a flame.
Yeah, the light of the world kind of thing, I guess.
Right.
But what struck me about this is just how difficult the idea of the coexist sticker is. I mean, Christians aren't even the most egregious offenders in terms of living with other people's views, and they still can't. Some of them still can't get over that other people have different ideas than they do, and it just struck me as both kind of funny and very sad at the same time. So
Yeah, you see that and you just kind of want to say, really, that's that's your response to the coexist bumper sticker is
me, my thing, the way I want to do it.
none of what you have to say or anyone else has to say, only this.
Yeah, and there's this weird kind of humility, or this at least idea of being humble, for Christians, and I think for most religions, like this idea that there's this higher power and we're just servants or whatever. But if that's not true, then it is just this selfish my thing. This is the way I want it to be. But just
Yeah.
and it's not like the coexist idea is asking that much. It's like the lowest possible. They're not saying, hey, agree with everybody. It just coexist. That's like the least and you could ask for. And that, nope, we won't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that's pretty rude. So speaking of this kind of bumper sticker on one side of the religious divide and then a response, it reminds me of our dad. People have the Jesus fish and the Darwin fish.
Yeah.
And it was just a couple of years ago that our dad first noticed the Darwin fish, and that thing's been around for a long time. But it just struck me as so funny because he was like, "Hey, have you seen this?" I was driving, and I thought it was the Jesus fish, but it had legs and stuff and said Darwin in it. And I said, yeah. And the Christians have counter-replied to that one with a fish that's eating it that says truth. Yeah. So anyways, I just thought that was amusing that he was not aware of any of that going on for however many years, probably close to 10 years that's been around. Because I think I remember Darwin fish back when, when I was first in college
Yeah.
that I started seeing those. So,
Shall we move on to Orange is the New Black?
yeah.
Okay. I just finished season 2. My just base opinion is I liked season 1 quite a bit. I felt like season 2 was a bit of a step back. What are your thoughts on both season 2 and the show in general?
I probably did like season 1 a little better on the whole. I thought they did some interesting things in season 2, but it didn't have just kind of the continuity that season 1 had. In the first couple episodes, there's the complete disconnect from what's happening in the familiar world. I don't know how much are we allowed to give away in spoilers here.
Oh, I think this is going to be full spoiler territory.
Okay.
So if you're watching, I mean it's out there. If you have Netflix, watch it. If you want to watch it later or something, maybe skip over this part and jump to the end of the episode here. But I think we'll jump into full spoilers.
So, but the fact that it starts off, you are totally disoriented from what's happening, and there's a reason that they do that, is because Piper is taken out of her familiar place and just thrust into some other prison and things, and you don't know what's going on, and neither does she. So the reason that they do it is because that's the same kind of disoriented feeling that she has. But it makes it hard, and you have to kind of piece together exactly what's happening, and and then there's that kind of relief when you realize, oh, this is just temporary.
I honestly wasn't sure if they were just, this is the show now, because I mean Alex shows up in that other prison, and for a moment I was like, okay, well maybe the entire show, then the series is going to be a whole new cast other than Piper and Alex, and maybe one or two other characters will get transferred later or something. But for a while there in that first episode, I thought it was the whole changeover.
Yeah, but and they did a good job, I think. At least I got a sense of just kind of suffocation, just being so much more confined in this other prison, and the people there were they were all nuts, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to be like, oh, please, don't keep her here.
Yeah. Like right off the bat, though, I do have one complaint that kicked off right in the beginning of that first episode. It's something that they do occasionally with Piper that I find annoying, which is they'll very clearly have her do the wrong thing or ignore somebody who's telling her something, and then she like the example I'm thinking of in that first episode is right away they're taking her out of her cell, and she's concerned, which is fine, but the guard tells her to go to the bathroom if she needs to go to the bathroom, and she ignores him. And as an audience member, you're sitting there thinking, well, clearly because he said this is going to become an issue for her. And then of course it does, which there's just occasionally they do that where there's something very obviously put in front of Piper that she's supposed to pay attention to, but she ignores it. And I find that kind of, I was just glad that got resolved within the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. I thought, oh God, are we going to have to go through this whole episode where Piper has to pee? But
yeah,
fortunately they didn't do that. But yeah, there's a couple. I can't think of any off the top of my head in the first season, but I know that wasn't the first time I had that feeling. Come on, Piper, just pay attention to what they're saying. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I did like about the second season is the introduction of the character V. I thought she was a very, they needed kind of a new, fresh character, and she was a very strong character, someone that was engaging, but also you love to hate her, and and had trouble figuring out exactly what her motivations were in some cases, and just a very interesting character to bring into the show.
I had issues with V, actually. Like, I like the idea of V, but I don't know if it was the actor or what, but I don't know, I just didn't fully ever buy into her as the threat that she was portrayed to be. Part of it is I have this ongoing issue with I usually don't really care that much for the backstories. I usually enjoy the prison stuff, but the backstories, with a couple exceptions, I feel like are unnecessary. And sometimes I feel like they're kind of contradictory to what we find out. Like, my two biggest characters that I felt like the past that we're presented doesn't match up with the characters we have already come to know are, I don't know the character's name off the top of my head, but in the first season, she's the black girl who is like, she was like an athlete or runner or whatever, and then she's kind of, that could be, I don't know, but but she's basically presented as a thug throughout the entire first season, and then we get to her backstory, and she's nothing like that. She's kind of like almost pie in the sky, you know, this nice girl, and then who gets caught up in a bad situation, and I felt like that didn't mesh at all. And then the one from this season that I felt like didn't match was Tasty's backstory. I really like Tasty as a character, but I felt like in the first season, her like, she's, and this might sound like an insult to the character, but I don't mean it to be, but I feel she's basically a cartoon character. She's over the top and goofy, and then we find her backstory, and she's got all these traits, like she's really good at math and this other stuff, and then it just doesn't, to me, never added up to the character that we find. And I feel like I feel like sometimes when they're trying to do these backstories, they try too hard to be surprising, and it doesn't work always for me. It doesn't add up to a solid continuity.
You're too cerebral when you're watching it. Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I guess so. And two of my favorite characters from the first season kind of got the back seat, because my favorite character, I could watch an entire show that was just Crazy Eyes, I think.
Yeah.
But and I think it made sense with the way that the show played out, given V's interaction. But like, it's a little disappointing that, you know, Crazy Eyes went the way she did. Like I said, I think it makes sense. It works. But that she kind of turns into this darker character for most of the season. Right. It makes sense, but I enjoyed the old Crazy Eyes, who was threatening, but was also very goofy.
Right, not ominous.
Right, yeah. And like I said, I don't mind that decision, because I think it makes sense with what's going on in the prison. But it takes one of my favorite characters, and now they're not as fun. The other one for me was Mendez, porn stash guy.
Yes.
Like, he was a great villain in season 1, and then he makes a brief appearance in season 2, and he's great in that. But, you know, he's it's just brief. So I felt like my two favorite characters weren't as involved in this season.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and I don't know. What do you think about the other kind of main guard that's just, you know, on the floor of the prison, not
the guy who got the inmate pregnant?
Yes. I find him really annoying.
I find their situation to be, I thought it worked in the first season, because I felt like the problems, for the most part, the problems that they had came naturally. Right. Whereas I felt like this season, it was completely just, I actually don't even have a problem with him. To me, it's mostly her, because I felt like she's being unreasonable.
Yeah.
So I felt like that whole, and it didn't. I mean, that was, as far as I can remember, the whole crux of their storyline this season was just. I mean, Mendez shows back up, kind of conveniently, at a point in time where now they can pin the child on him, but other than that, their whole arc is just, she wants him to tell the truth, and then he doesn't want to, and eventually he does. But Caputo, is that his name?
Something like that. Caputo.
Caputo,
Yeah.
I think that's right. But then he, because of his situation, wants to keep a lid on that, and so we'll have to see how that plays out, because he did try to do. I hesitate to call it the right thing, but at least as far as his girl is concerned, he tries to do the right thing, but it doesn't solve her problem that she's because of Caputo's reaction and wanting to keep it quiet. That doesn't solve her problem of keeping. She doesn't want this to be a secret. But the reason we bring up Orange is the New Black is because it has an atheist protagonist. And how do you feel Piper is portrayed, both as an atheist and just in general, on the show?
I think they do a good job of portraying someone who maybe how do I say it? I think she has intellectual tendencies and wants to be someone who is a thinker and whatever, but that gets her into trouble a lot of times, and sometimes it often comes off as pretentious and arrogant, even if that's not in her intention at all. But
does she ever does she ever come out, and I don't think she ever comes out and says she's an atheist. I think at one point she questions God or something in the first season or something like. Do you recall?
Yeah, well, there's kind of a speech where that she gives it's in the first season. I actually have a video clip, but I don't know if I can play it on here. But it's she goes into this speech. It's when the Pennsatucky character is trying to baptize her. Piper has tried to kind of extend an olive branch by saying, "Well, sure, I'll be a Christian," and Pennsatucky tries to bring her in to baptize her, and that's a bridge too far for Piper, and so she breaks into this kind of soliloquy about no thanks, I believe in evolution and Hitchens, and I agree with Hitchens and Dawkins, she says, and Hitchens can be an ass sometimes, but he makes a lot of good points, and one of the things that she says is, I don't believe that people get cancer because God needs another angel in heaven, and one of the interesting things is Pennsatucky has this following of people that she's leading in Bible studies and things, and when Piper turns to them, they kind of say, well, yeah, that idea of God needing an angel does kind of seem dumb or whatever, and
yeah.
that really sets off Pennsatucky. But what are your thoughts on their portrayal of an atheist?
I guess because they don't spend a whole lot of time on it, which I think is the right thing to do, because I think it's kind of interesting because you are seeing a bit of a upswing in terms of atheists being portrayed in general on television. I don't watch it, but I don't even know if it's on the air anymore. But House, that character is an atheist. I don't know if you saw I'm guessing not, because I don't think you have You don't have HBO, do you?
No.
But True Crime, which was kind of a popular show this past year, the Matthew McConaughey character again, I don't think it's, I don't know if they're afraid of the word atheist or what, but I don't recall him ever claiming to be an atheist. But he clearly is an atheist. I feel like there's almost always a bit of they're always like atheist with a twist of lemon. There's always some kind of oddity added to the atheist. So I don't really mind that necessarily. I feel like Piper is, I think, maybe the most straightforward atheist I can think of on any television program. Um, and I do enjoy it because for the most part, these atheists that are being portrayed are often like the main character, and even though sometimes they can be abrasive, the audience is meant to be on their side. So I do appreciate that. I almost wonder if, at least in the case of Piper, like they're kind of taking like she's kind of like a clean slate, because that really is what an atheist is. It's just somebody who doesn't have these added beliefs.
Right.
And so in that regard, she's able to go into this prison and experience it without anybody else's preconceived ideas of God or any other religious thing. Or at the same time, it's probably more likely that it's just, what can we want this main character, what's an interesting twist we can give her, and let's make her an atheist. So I don't know what the case is. My bottom line is I enjoy Piper. Occasionally they have her do things that I think are kind of dumb, but I enjoy her and I root for her, and I feel like she's a pretty good representative for atheism.
Yeah, the series is based roughly on the book by the woman whose name is Piper. The author's name is Piper, and I think it's roughly based on her experiences in. Yeah, so I think maybe she's leans toward atheism, or I don't know if she considers herself an atheist or not, but and I haven't read the books. My wife has done a little bit of investigation and just into how the stories compare and things, so she would know more about that than I do. But from what I gather, it's this is an approximate portrayal of the author Piper's experience in a women's prison. So
yeah,
maybe a fictionalized account.
All right. Do you want to move on to our final subject here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to take the reins on this one?
Sure. So we're going to talk about the trolley thought experiments, and I'm going to go ahead and do my screen share here, just so I can pull up some images to help us. Let me know. Can you see this, Todd?
Is it up now? I don't see anything at the moment.
Hang on. Let me see if I can do it again. No, it didn't work. Hang on. Let me try one more time here. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Got it?
I see. Trolley thought experiments. Yep.
Great. So, two philosophers kind of came up. The first was Philippa Foot in 1967, and then Judith Jarvis Thompson kind of added on to the thought experiment later on. So the idea with the first thought experiment was that so you are this individual at the lever near the railroad tracks, and you see a trolley coming down, and down at the end of the tracks, there are 5 individuals on one kind of path that the trolley could go on, and one individual down the other path. And by moving the lever, you essentially determine who is going to die in this scenario. And there's no other alternative in the thought experiment to get the people out of the way or something. I've heard variations where they try and address the problem of, well, wave your hands maybe and jump around to see if you can get their attention. But so one of the scenarios was that the people are all tied up, and on one side the one person's tied up, and on the other side there are 5 people tied up, lying on the tracks. A villain has come apparently or something. So, but your choice is, if you do nothing, 5 people will die, and if you move the lever, only 1 person dies. So most people say, well, I would choose to move the lever and save one, or save essentially a net of 4 people's lives. So in, I guess it was 1985, the other philosopher brought up the second scenario where you are standing on a bridge and you see the trolley coming, and there's a big fat person sitting on the bridge, and if you pushed him off the edge of the bridge, he would fall and block the trolley from running over the 5 people. So in the second scenario, there's not you can't make the trolley go down a different path or anything, but by pushing this fat man, he is large enough that he would obstruct the trolley from moving forward, and you would, the net result of human lives being lost or saved would be 4 again. So in surveys, again, they say 90% of people who respond to the surveys about what should you do, they say they would pull the lever in the first thought experiment, and that would be the best moral choice in scenario 1 with the trolley. But 90% of people in the surveys about the second scenario say they would not push the fat man off the bridge, and say that pushing the man off the bridge to save those 5 people's lives is not the correct thing to do. And so the question becomes, well, how do we explain a moral theory that can kind of compensate for both of these different things that we feel very profoundly in most cases? One thing is the right thing to do, even though it results in the death of 1 person, and causing the death of a person in the second scenario seems very morally wrong. So, do you want to go first and give your thoughts?
Sure. I think there's 2 issues that come together in making a decision like this. I think they're hard to distinguish from each other, but I think they exist. Both, I believe, arise out of our evolutionary our evolution as a species. Primarily because we're a species that is a social species, and we rely on other people, and other people make our existence better and allow us a better chance at survival. So in Sam Harris's book, The Moral Landscape, at one point he asks a question, and he doesn't provide an answer to be more of a rhetorical question, but he poses the question, and I forget the exact details, but the gist of it is, what is 1 person's broken leg weighed against an entire city's headache, or something along those lines? I don't remember if it was broken leg or whatever the case was, but the question was how do you judge what is worse, or what's better, I guess. And I have an opinion on that. I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but in my opinion, 10 people's headache is equal to one person's headache, in my opinion. And so to compare, if I had to choose between giving an entire city a headache and one person a broken leg, I would give an entire city a headache, because in my opinion that is equal to one person having a headache. Those combined headaches are not cumulative. Now, I think the reason why it feels like they should be cumulative is, and especially it's less obvious in a situation where it's just a matter of headaches and broken legs, but in a situation like we're talking about here with the trolley, where it's one person's life versus 5 people's lives, is because there is probably a subconscious awareness of what's better for my species, what's better for my group, and to kill one person is less damaging to your group than killing multiple people would be, as far as an evolutionary standpoint. Now, that's not a moral argument, but I believe that is why we feel that way, because
but in the trolley scenarios, we generally want to say, well, we'll pull the lever, which results in the death of one person,
right?
But we're not willing to push the fat man off, which has the same net result. So if your bottom line is saving the lives of a net loss of lives of 1 versus 5, so the net is 4 lives saved. In both scenarios, how do you account for the difference between the two scenarios there?
Well, I don't know that I do have a complete accounting for that. I was just kind of starting a little bit further back.
Sure.
But
sure.
I mean, to me, I think the reason is somewhat obvious, but not completely satisfactory. Is just that there's a level of removal. The difference between pressing a button and sending a nuclear bomb overseas versus actually killing people face to face. There's a difference there.
Sure.
Pushing somebody off of a thing where you're the one direct. I mean, it's just you're removed from it to an extent, even though you are in both cases the cause of it. I think is my answer to that. What are your thoughts?
So part of the thing that I think comes into play, and this is just a hunch of mine, is that there's some doubt. I mean, when we are pulling a lever, I think, well, first of all, I think you're right that the hands-on aspect does play into it. But I think there's more to it than that. I think, in part, we know that by pulling that lever, or at least in theory, that train should go, because it goes that way when we pull the lever in other situations, and we would be, able to accomplish the saving of people's lives. There would be less death by doing that. Pushing a man off of a bridge to stop a trolley or a train or something is not something. It's not a method of stopping a train, and to me,
you would have to be really fat too.
Yeah. Well, and what if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
This is not the way that we stop trains. If you push that guy off and it doesn't result in stopping the train, you've killed that guy, and possibly 5 additional people die too. So you're increasing. So there's that kind of epistemic doubt that I don't even know if this is going to work, and it's certainly going to harm at least one person and may not result in anything to do anything for these other people. So to
Um,
me, that plays into it, maybe on a subconscious level.
Perhaps I still feel like that even even if you came up with a more perfect scenario where you could say, well, there's no doubt that this by putting somebody else in this, like you physically pushing somebody off of something or something like that, and you could know for 100% certainty that it would have the effect of stopping the other people from getting killed. I do still feel like there is still um, a difference between that and um, pulling the lever. And I don't know if it is completely just that in this other hypothetical scenario, which I haven't described at all, if it is just a level of separation from your action and the end result, or what. But
Yeah, I think we tend to be less inclined toward the hands-on violence. So, like, I think I recall a scenario that I read about or heard about in class at some point where instead of pushing the fat man off, you're on the bridge, but you have a sniper rifle, and you are able to see the trolley driver, and you have the knowledge that the trolley driver has to have his, let's say his foot on the accelerator in order to keep that trolley moving forward. He's not paying attention, and he'll run over these 5 people. But you have a clear shot to him. You can pull the trigger and kill this guy, and then the people on the track would be saved because the forward momentum of the trolley will stop. Well, I think most people still would be pretty reluctant to
yeah,
to
it's
pull that trigger.
it is interesting because even with a gun, and I don't know if it's just that at this point in history we are so familiar with guns that they almost seem like extensions of ourselves. But I mean, it's I guess in it isn't that different from my analogy of pressing a button and a nuclear bomb goes off. In this case, you're pulling a trigger and a projectile is shot forward and kills somebody. But it still feels much more personal and much more direct than pressing a button and somewhere else a nuclear bomb goes off. Um, I don't I don't know exactly how to account for that. I do feel like um, it is. I feel like it's almost like a bit of a malfunction of our evolution. The way we come to determine things, almost like, and not as problematic, but with a moth that uses the sun as a guide to figure out how to get up, but when it encounters a flame, at nighttime, now it sees the flame as the sun as its reference point, and so it circles around this flame, and that's in that case it's a malfunction of its evolutionary design. Maybe I shouldn't use the word design, but of its makeup, and so it causes this problem where 99.9% of the time moths in the world don't run into this problem because they're in the wild and they haven't had cause to evolve a way to detect the difference between the sun and a flame. But when a moth encounters a flame or just a light at night, it doesn't know how to react to that. I feel like there's possibly something similar going on with us in this moral dilemma. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of one of those interesting points where something seems to be solid and self-evident, in our minds, but when we start to kind of poke it and prod it and test it and things become much less clear as to what exactly is going on. So that's kind of the truth, the way it is with a lot of things with the mind and our philosophies and beliefs.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fun to poke and prod at those um, gray areas, and to me, that's a big part of what I hope to continue doing here on Super Atheist Bros. Do you have
Sounds good
anything
to me.
else?
Nope, that's all I've got.
All right. Well, this was, I think, more in line with the amount of time we were expecting to spend on an episode. So, um, until next week, we haven't really discussed what our topics will be. We have a handful of topics that we have lined up, but we'll sort through them and figure that out. Good talking to you, Gavagai.
Good talking to you, Turtle, and hello to our 2 viewers.
Oh, we got 2. Excellent.
Yeah, double last week's viewers.
Nice. We just got to keep doubling it. All
All
right.
right.
Super
See you next
Atheist
time.
Bros out.